Hi guys and welcome back to a new video. My name is Milla and this is Milla Explores, where I share anything travel related. Almost 2 years ago I made this video where I shared the pros and cons of living in Barcelona, and that video got a lot of views and a lot of comments, but I wanted to now do a pros and cons of living in Finland. So I have lived in Finland my whole life. I'm born and raised here, apart from living in the United States for 10 months as an exchange student and then also in Barcelona for 5 months. I have lived here my whole life, and after traveling quite a lot, I have noticed a few pros and cons of living in Finland that I want to share with you today. So let's talk about the good and the bad and why you might hate living in Finland and why you might love it. I have also asked a few friends for some opinions and thoughts on this, so I'm not alone on this topic. So let's start off with the cons to just get those things out of the way, and then we can move on to the positive sides and the positive things of living in Finland. But yeah, the first con is definitely the gray weather in November, like in the October, November, December. Those months can be really gray and wet, and in Finland we have this thing called loskapaska, which basically means like slush, like wet snow, gray snow, and it's just disgusting, and it's not a fun time to be in Finland like that time of the year. That's why I also would never recommend anyone to come to Finland at that time of the year, like in the October, November time, because it's not pretty, and the loskapka or like the slush can be really horrific actually. And the second thing is that, speaking of like darkness, in Finland we have this thing called kaamos, which means like the polar night or the darkness, which like occurs like every winter around like December, and that's the darkest time of the year when we don't get sunlight even at all, or just like a couple of hours a day, and that really affects like the mood of a lot of people, and that's me included. So I can get really affected by the darkness, and also in Finland it's pretty common to get like symptoms of depression during that time, because it's called kaamosmasennus, which basically translates to the polar night depression. Some people experience like really depression, but some people just get some symptoms of it, like being really tired and being stressed more like frequently, and just craving sweet things and carbs and stuff like that, and just not being in a good mood overall. And yeah, I've noticed that in the past years that during like the end of November or beginning of December, like before Christmas, it can be really like, I can be really stressed out and also really like tired because of the darkness, which is pretty natural because living in darkness can get pretty depressing. The third con about living in Finland is that eating out can be quite expensive. So if you want to go to a restaurant and have some food and drinks, that can be quite expensive actually. And that's also why eating out, like in my experience, is more of a luxury and not like the norm. So let's say, for example, when I lived in Barcelona and eating out there was a lot more affordable, I of course did go out to eat a lot more often. But here in Finland, it's more of a luxury to go out to a restaurant and actually have like dinner with some drinks, like a glass of wine. It's not something we do like every week. So yeah, it can get quite expensive, which is like, obviously it's related to the high cost of living. So I love the Finnish summer. I think it can be really magical. I'll get back to that later. But one of the cons with the Finnish summer is that the Finnish summer can be really rainy, like it rains a lot, and the weather can be very unpredictable, which can make it hard for us to do like, or make plans related to being outside. So yeah, that's one of the cons of living in Finland, especially living or being in Finland during the summertime. So traveling around in Finland can be quite expensive, especially when we consider things like accommodation and, as I said, eating out at restaurants. So sometimes it can be more cost effective for us to actually travel abroad to a more affordable country rather than making, for example, a 2-week road trip around Finland. So of course this also depends on the travel style and also the length of the trip. Like, I'm not gonna do like a 1-day trip abroad to a cheaper country because that wouldn't be really, like, that wouldn't make sense. But for example, let's say that I would do a 2-week road trip around Finland and staying at hotels or Airbnbs here in Finland versus like going to, let's say, Southern Europe or Eastern Europe, for example, Poland or Estonia. That's more cost effective because it's a lot cheaper. So now when we have talked about the cons, let's get into the pros of living in Finland, because there's a lot of them. Even though there were a few cons, I still do think that Finland is a great country to live in, and I do love living here, and it's always nice to come back after a trip, to come home to Finland. So the first pro is the functioning traffic system. It's really safe to move around here in traffic, and usually people respect the rules, which makes the system to function very well. Another thing is that taxes are usually seen as rather high in Finland, but those taxes do pay for things like public health care and free education, for example. So the free education system is great because you get free education, even like university level education is free here. And until university, you get free lunch. So at university, you still have to pay like maybe €2 for like school lunch. But before that, you get free school lunch, which is really nutritious. And it's something that I really missed when I was living in the United States. It was the free school lunch, which actually is pretty good. It's actually filling and healthy. So living in Finland means that you're usually surrounded by nature, or it's really close by. So the nature is really easily accessible. You're usually pretty close by to some nature trails and well-maintained like resting stops or campfire spots as well. So that's really nice. So in Finland, you can usually get into the nature pretty fast, even if you live in the cities. Also in Finland, there's the everyman's right, or jokamiehen oikeus in Finnish. And the everyman's right basically means that everyone visiting or living in Finland has the right to roam freely on the countryside, in the forests, and also like close to any water spots, and enjoy like the nature overall. So again, related to taxes and overall system in Finland, we have Kela, which in Finnish is the Kansaneläkelaitos, but in English it's the Finnish Social Insurance Institution, which supports students as well. So through Kela you can apply for things like student grants, student aid or student loans, and also like housing aid, I guess, housing grants, which are meant for students as well. So this is the government-backed financial support that almost all students get in Finland when they go studying for university, for example. So you get the student grants or student aid every month, so you can survive as a student in Finland. And Kela also provides like student loan compensation. So if you finish your studies in time, like the estimated time, then you get compensation, or a part of your student loan is compensated by Kela, or it's like government-backed financial aid again. So this makes it usually possible for students to move away from home to a city that they want to study in, and just makes it easier for us to survive as students here in Finland, so we don't need to work like around the clock. During my studies, I personally did work, but I know that a lot of people don't, and they just like work in the summer, and then during the other months when they're studying, they get the grants and aids and loans from Kela, which makes it easier to survive. So if you ever come to Finland, you probably will notice that the selection in grocery stores is pretty good. We have a wide selection usually in the grocery stores, and this also includes if you have like dietary restrictions, like if you're vegan, if you need something gluten-free or lactose-free or dairy-free or egg-free or meat-free or anything, we have a good selection of all those foods in the grocery stores. And I also noticed this when I travel abroad and then I go to the grocery store, which I usually find pretty interesting. I like to roam around the grocery store in different countries, but then I usually notice that, yeah, we do actually have a pretty good selection of grocery items in Finland, like in most grocery stores, which is nice. And this does not only apply to dietary restrictions, but just in general, I think that the Finnish grocery stores usually has a pretty good selection of pretty much anything. So one thing that I usually take for granted, and I'm sure that many other Finns do as well, is that Finland is a rather safe country, and you can actually trust the authorities, like the police, for example. You can walk around alone during the nights as well. It's like Finland is a safe country, and I think this is something that I get reminded of whenever I'm traveling to countries that are not as safe as Finland or are not considered as safe. So then if I have to think about like where do I walk alone at night, then I usually am thankful to be living in Finland because it's such a safe place to live. Also in Finland, we have a good selection of different like free or very affordable exercising opportunities like ice skating rinks in the winter and well-maintained cross-country ski trails in the winter as well. And also like the recreational centers with swimming pools and such are pretty affordable to use. So I think this is a good way to get the people moving, even though I think we don't move as much as we should, but you know, it's still good. One thing that I often miss when I'm traveling abroad is the clean and actually really well-tasting drinking water. The tap water that we have here in Finland, it usually tastes pretty good and it's really clean and fresh, so I really love it, and that's one thing that I miss a lot when I'm traveling. And also speaking of water is the good water pressure and also the warm water, which usually we don't run out of. So I know in a lot of countries the warm water is pretty restricted or you don't have it at all. So it's nice to have good water pressure and also warm water available here. So in the cons I mentioned Finnish summer and it's like raininess or the unpredictable weather, but I do find Finnish summer really magical, and I love Finnish summer. It's my favorite time of the year because it's just such a like nice and carefree time somehow. And I also really enjoy the midnight sun, which basically means that the sun doesn't set at all, which is just wonderful, and it's really something that anyone should like experience. And there are also a lot of things about the Finnish culture which I really enjoy. For example, the sauna culture. I love going into the sauna, going in, using the sauna. I personally really enjoy using the sauna. I love the sauna and I think it's a fun part of the Finnish culture. But other things that I enjoy about the Finnish culture is, for example, some of the food. Not all the food, some food can be pretty tasteless if we compare to other countries. But for example, the creamy salmon soup or glögi in the winter time. I do like those. One thing that one of my friends mentioned was the Finnish pantti system, which is basically the system of returning the bottles and cans when you have used them. So whenever you go to buy some drinks, for example, here I have a can of Nokko, which is a really good like energy drink. Here you can see there's like the 15 cents like deposit or pantti, and basically this is just a small fee that you buy when you buy the cans or buy the drinks, but you get it back once you return the can into the pantti machine, which is basically a machine which you will find in any grocery store, and you can then like just return the cans and bottles and get your money back. So it's a good way to return the bottles and cans, and I think it's a good like sustainability aspect which is missing from a lot of other countries. Another great thing about living in Finland is that a lot of errands can be taken care of online. So for example, when it comes to like taxes, paying taxes, figuring out your like tax percentage, or doing things related to banking, and like bank related stuff, you don't actually need to go somewhere in person to take care of those, and you don't need to send or deliver any kind of papers, like physical papers, like that's so old school. In Finland you can do that all online, which is great, so I don't actually have to leave my laptop at any time. So that was all the pros and cons in this video that I wanted to mention. I hope you have enjoyed this video, and if you are someone living in Finland, then maybe you have some other points that you want to point out, some cons and pros that you would like to share. You can share those in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video and want to see more content related to Finland and traveling, then make sure to subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!